Record. So I recorded the last one, by the way. I'm going to upload it to YouTube, put it as secret, and then send you the link out. Does that sound fair? Yeah, so you don't have to watch it because you've already been here, but a few people were asking about it. So awesome. All right. This is quite an intense next hour for you guys. So let me know if you want me to slow down. I'm happy to take like some feedback from you guys because when you know the course inside and out, you can rush through quite quickly. So it all starts with a vision, right? Strategic agility is all about having a vision. If you have no vision, you have no purpose. If you have no purpose, you have no motivation. And no matter how much you try and pay someone enough, intrinsic motivation will never actually outstrip intrinsic motivation. And it's the reason why Google themselves have come up with the idea of paying enough money to take the worry of money off the table and therefore focus on things that make people happy. And Google now is one of the top 10 businesses to work for in the world. So The Golden Circle by Simon Sinek, you've probably all heard of it. If you haven't, the video there is obviously really good. And what he just basically goes through is most organizations start with what they're doing. Some organizations focus on how they're doing it, but very few organizations focus on why they're doing it. And it's that why statement that makes more sense to customers. See, customers don't really care. There's lots of people who solve our problems, right? We have a slight worry about how they solve them. Some people worry more about sustainability. Some worry more about how they treat their employees. Some want less prices. Some people, there's a lot of variance in what we want as customers. I pay more for products that I class as sustainable or that treat their employees well. I always will. But even that, I don't really care about. It's more about why they exist. And when I read strategy documents that have I'll paraphrase, we're here to do the best prices for our customers. It's like, that's cool. So you're operationally excellent. That's fantastic. But why do you exist? Whereas if they say something like, I'm here to put a ding in the universe, or I'm going to, I'm looking to people would jump out of bed so they love their days. That's more compelling. It's like everything they do is based around that why. And the vision gets not only customers going, but they also get employees going, which is always really good. So we started to have what we class as a shift from specialization. Now, specialization, as you probably heard yesterday, Taylorism, he specialized everyone to what they were good at, made them very, very good at specific things. It made things very efficient. And it did. It was very efficient. This sort of sales, operations, customer service, R&D, or people here, IT, HR, strategy, it doesn't actually matter, but these segmentations were done on purpose so that people could become the best HR person possible, the best developer possible, and so on. The difference is when you think about it, no department by themselves creates value. So let's dig in for a little bit. You could be the best finance department in the world, but you are merely a cog in the end-to-end of that value chain. And until you deliver value at the end, which is this little gold coin, it doesn't actually matter how good you are. So when you talk about the difference between efficiency and productivity, it's not the same thing. Efficiency is how good a unit could be, whereas a productivity is about how good the overall unit is in delivering value to the end customer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I was going to wait until someone said something. I love it. I love it. So
another thing around Taylorism was that it didn't necessarily tap into people's intrinsic motivations either, because they didn't have the line of sight and they were only doing one little cog.
Yep, totally agree. There was two things that I think Taylor did incorrect, even in the 1910s. He presumed that the people would be the same productive people every day, no matter what. So one of his experiments we talked about yesterday, he made someone move the coal from one area to the next, and then the next day took a chink off their shovel and moved it back from there to there again. Now, what he presumed is that these people would work the same motivation every single day. What we know now, though, through behavioral science, is there probably was a declining motivation because, well, I just moved from there to there. And if any of you has smart dogs, right, and you throw a ball and they bring it back to you, you throw it again, they look at you. Are you stupid? What's going on? And they walk slower. And it's really funny that even dogs have less motivation to go get that ball. Or at least my dogs anyway. And by the third throw, they refuse to go. And the second thing that Taylor got incorrect, which we know now, is that it's based on the fact that the customer is not the leading change agent. It's the company. And what we found out now is it's not that customers are sold to, customers now buy. And we know that. So because we know we have the buying power, we only buy from people that we like or solutions we want. So they're the two kind of things I think Taylorism got wrong. But bear in mind, it was 100 years ago, and it was during a time when the aristocrats were still running the world. Let's move that for myself. Can't see. How do I get rid of that? So I got a little annoying button. I can't move. Oh well. So yeah, the value at the end is all that matters. The concern we've got now is people go, millennials. Apparently I'm a millennial as well. Wow, I didn't know that. But Generation Z are actually far more scary than my generation. So they know they can't buy a house. They know they can't get a job. And if you ever given no hope to somebody, they'll find their own hope. So Generation Z are very picky. They've caused what's called micro niche segmentations in marketing now. And it's really fascinating because they no longer accept 24 hours for a customer service rep to come back to them. They want to be like answered now. And I found myself doing this as well. I felt really bad. So here in Wanganui, there was a local shop that had a Facebook page, and I messaged, and I waited an hour, and I got grumpy. And the guy came back to me the next day and went, sorry, we were closed on Sundays. And I was like, well, that's not really good enough, is it? And I thought, what an absolute git I was. It made no sense for them to actually be open on Sundays, but I've become so, I guess, I want that service constantly. So, and Generation Z is much worse. They're a globalized workforce. They know, and what I mean by that is they know that the global market exists, right? I got friends in Thailand who work in New Zealand. I got friends in UK who work in Asia. It doesn't matter where you are now. COVID, this was done before COVID, by the way, as well. So COVID has changed the entire map. I'm trying to get like 70 employees from MSD to come to Wanganui. So they would never even consider that, probably 6 months ago. Now it's like, oh, that makes sense. It's cheaper there. And we can get, cheaper staff, and the staff will be happier. Sounds great. And we believe in open knowledge share. The new generations are looking at open knowledge share. What does that mean? Well, it's kind of weird for the next generation now to actually have any secret IP. Like, no one really cares that you want to keep your IP because it changes so quickly. Why you worry about it? So that's quite interesting.
Hey, for music.
Well, music's a good example. In my generation, we're the Napster generation, right? So,
oh,
yeah, who remembers Napster? Come on, we used to download music all the time.
I can remember Walkmans and tapes.
Yeah. I used to make mixtapes for £4. I remember that because you used to press record. It took ages actually. But yeah, it's open knowledge share is becoming very normal, and anyone who thinks they're going to keep their IP has got nothing coming. Especially things like crypto coming in for those who work in banks. I was there at ASB when someone laughed at the idea of crypto becoming big, and I tell you now, technology coming out of that market is astonishing. Like, it could disrupt any industry right now, and it's just us geeks who know about it. Like, a couple of people know about it from an investing point of view, but no one understands the true Internet of Things power behind that code, and it's going to be disruptive. So yeah, anyway. So functional silos, they have a higher cost of delivery now. We know this, and they have a lower motivation. We know that as well, because this guy here also told us about this in 1890s, right? Hey Nation. So he created this book in behavioral science. Please ignore his communism, but just look at his behavioral science stuff. It's amazing. He predicted that the working class person, taking them away from seeing the customer, would demotivate them. He predicted that putting a supply chain where you're one cog in many would demotivate them. Removing people from their family units would demotivate them. And it was proven in the 1950s, like 100%. And it's taken us 70 more years to come to the conclusion that actually we should probably have people who spend more time with their families, have people closer to the customer, and we should probably give people with the knowledge of what they're actually producing, so they feel they've accomplished something. So yeah, it's really interesting. Over 130 years ago, sorry, he was writing about this same stuff we're teaching a course in 2020, like special.
Who was that? Sorry?
That's Karl Marx.
Oh, is that Marx? Okay.
Sorry, that's Karl Marx. So he's actually a behavioral scientist. So he brought his behavioral science background into politics, and everyone sort of joked about him ever since. But his behavioral science stuff was pretty on the money. He just created a manifesto called the Communist Manifesto that went a little bit crazy. There's some good stuff in it. There's some bad stuff in it. Every manifesto's got good and bad, right? But it was based on the idea of actually empowering the working class to be closer to their customers, which is what we're teaching now. Difference is I'm not teaching 100% tax. So Francis Galton, yep, was a country fair in the 1906. So the story goes. Apparently this is actually fake, but it's a good story. And came across a competition where you had to go and guess the weight of an ox. It's a good story, right? Long story short, all the posh people over here, the butchers and the farmers and all the people who should know stuff, they created a guessing game of the weights. And they were actually further away than just regular people. So 787 people guessed. 1,197 pounds was the average. The weight was 1,198. So a little bit too close for believability. So a couple of years ago, somebody came up with a nice little experiment. So as you can see, Penelope the cow was sent out. I think this is to 5,000 people-ish. I can't remember. And just by email, nothing else. Did you get to see the cow or anything, right? It said, hey, how big's Penelope? And the average weight came in at 1287, and the actual weight was 3055. So crowd power actually worked. And this is quite astonishing when you think about this is not just 700 people in a stall in London where probably they lied. This was legit data from a study. And what I thought was even more interesting is they replicated the experts. So the experts quoted 1272 and weight was 3055. So the experts were actually further away. The spread wasn't so big, I'll agree. So they were probably the mode would probably be closer, but the average was closer on the regular Joes like you and me being crowdsourced. Interesting, isn't it? And this is when you hear people say, I'm a specialist. Only I know that. It's really, really hard for anyone to learn this stuff. You can tell them, if I guess the answer with enough people, I probably will get it right. And I love that for that reason. So we rock into what is a team versus a group. Do you all think you're in teams? Go on, Joe. Are you in a team?
Not right this second, but in the past, absolutely, it's a team.
Cool. And what makes it a team?
That you all have a common purpose together, that you're all working towards the same thing.
Nice. Yep. Common purpose. Anything else? It's not a trick question. I'm honest. I promise you.
They complement some skills to achieve the common purpose?
Yeah, I actually agree with that. It would be handy for sure, especially to have the right skills to deliver the common purpose. Yep, totally agree. To work together, sorry?
You working together.
Yeah, so it's shared what?
Shared work?
Yeah.
Shared understanding, shared
understanding, yeah. So the difference between a group and a team is, so this little diagram here, this is a group. So they have a common interest, right? This is the team. They have a common purpose. So nice one, Joe. And the other thing they have is a group will have individual goals, individual accountability. Whereas a team will have mutual goals, mutual accountability, right? So simple as that. So I get quite pedantic on this, especially so I'm in a team at the moment in MSD. And I said, oh, guys, look, if we want to be a team, we probably need to have some mutual accountability on our goals. At the moment, I feel we're quite individual, so we're more of a group than a team. Oh, God, it went off on one. People were upset that I didn't think we were team members. So there's not much psychological safety on using those terms, but that's the definitions right there. And it's very easy to see the differences as well. And some common examples of group versus teams. Atlassian recently, I think it was last year to be exact, went through some changes in their system where they created teams, and those that were not part of a team were gone. Just bye-bye. So they basically got rid of all of their really good developers who were individuals, and they weren't playing part of a team. And they did that for one main reason, probably two really. Culture was definitely one, but the other reason was actually productivity. Productivity increases by removing people with hero complexes. So if you have a whole bunch of groups going around, there's normally one person in the group who's like a team lead. Everyone looks up to them. There's no innovation because everyone listens to that person. They have social authority. It's one of the things that coaches, like agile coaches and scrum masters, they tend to fall into that trap quite a bit. The main reason is because people look up to them in some sort of social leadership role that the team doesn't think for themselves. The same way with in leadership roles, you may have, say, 5-6 staff, and you're not realizing it, but you're always giving them the answers, and therefore they stop actually thinking for themselves. In a team, it's all about the team, and therefore no one person's bigger than the other. Another example of this is actually Navy SEALs. So really quick example on the Navy SEALs. Their KPIs are based on people actually going through the course. It's a very hard course. I'd hate to do it myself. Like I barely did the police course when I was consulting at police, and that was hard enough, let alone Navy SEALs. And what they originally did was they put a whole bunch of really good people, like one really good person into every unit, right? Thinking that they'll bring everybody up. So I get their reasoning. It made total sense. What happened is the pass rates went through the floor. Why do you think that is, everyone? Why do you think that is? Why would a really good person in your squad make you less productive, I guess.
Specialization.
Yeah, probably a little bit more than that. Go a bit further, Greg. So it's specialization, but like they've got a specialization. Like
Maybe
it creates an imbalance within the team, I guess.
Imbalance. Yes, they've got more specialty. They're more in balance. They feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I do running, and I'm not a runner. I do Ironman. I'm not an Ironman. When I train with people who are a little bit better than me, I love it. I love the competition. It's great. When I train with people who are a lot better than me, I head to the pub and I give up for the day. Not gonna lie. Many times I've hit the pub, gone, oh, look at this, can't run. So Navy SEALs found that exact thing out. What they did was they went, that didn't work, did it? So what they did was they put all the best people together and then they staged it. And they got a higher pass rate and more people becoming units together. So the main thing about Navy SEALs is you've got to be, you got to trust your squad, right? It's life or death. You're not going to trust the arrogant guy who can do like 50 more push-ups than you. But people who work together to do things and you go through something together, you will just basically love your team better, which is the same thing we're doing here. There's 10 of us going through this course. We're all doing it together. If one person was like absolutely crazily already knowing this, then you guys would isolate that person and you wouldn't want to deal with that person. It's quite funny. It's the same thing in teams. Has anyone experienced isolation?
Not isolation, but within the Navy SEALs, like in the Badass program, we use very similar techniques. And you have a swim buddy concept. Oh, yeah? Which is interesting because your swim buddies don't necessarily all on the same page. They're with you as a person, but not necessarily across the same. So there's almost an intersection somewhere there.
Interesting, like that. But yeah, I probably spent the first 10 years of my life being the outsider. I will fully admit that. To Kelsey's point earlier on, I was an AMB person through and through, probably orange actually. I was like real individualistic outcome. Whenever I got a new contract, because I've been contracting my whole life pretty much, I'd go straight in there, I'd have coffees with everyone, and then I'll figure out, okay, how do I become the best person in this team? And I have no friends for this reason, right? So, not a dick. I don't badmouth anybody. I just basically look at it like, okay, you do 4 projects, I'm gonna do 5. I'm very competitive in that way. And yeah, never been a good team person. Probably still not a good team person, let's be fair. But I do find it very interesting. Whereas if a team was to hire me at some stage and puts people of similar, I guess, psychological profiles as me and similar abilities to me, I think we'd rule the world. I really do. Hence, I created my own company and I'm hiring my own people. It's so much easier.
How much diversity of thought would you have in that?
I totally agree. Yeah. So, like, where is Mina? So Mina's meant to be here. She's like my opposite. Like, she's like so opposite to me. It's unbelievable. So I brought Mina on board to basically ground me, shall we say. And we've got a new partner joining us. Greg, you might know him, Collard. He does startups. Different personality type to me as well. So you're right.
I know Collard.
You know Collard? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a secret. Yeah, we should have a contract up and running for a partnership in the next few weeks. I'm looking forward to it because I don't have much networking in Auckland, so it'd be really handy to have someone with the same values as me. So values really important, motivation really important, psychological profile, behavioral traits can be different. I've had to learn, but as long as everybody wants to be like the best they could possibly be, I don't mind, Kelsey. That's kind of my main thing. But yeah, so that's team versus groups, right? I mean, you could go on about that for hours, to be honest. It's really, I find it fascinating. I've got a really cool book by Levi, if you ever want it, guys. It's called Group Dynamics. It's got everything you ever want to know about groups, right? Not teams, but groups. And every study under the sun, you buy it's $100. And if you ever have a problem in your team, you just look through the book and go, problem. Oh, here it is. Oh, is that why you're doing it? Someone stole mine. So in 1950s, Maslow and Hertzberg came up with a whole bunch of cool stuff, right? And I'm going to real simplify a 5-day course into like the next 2 minutes. But they come up with a hierarchy. And in the hierarchy, you have quite simply, basic needs. Oh, sorry. I really want to get rid of this. I really want to get rid of this book. Ah, there we go. Thank you. Sorry. Can you guys see that little box? No, so that's the problem. You have no idea why I'm having problems. So there's physiological needs. There are safety needs. Now they wrap it up and call it basic needs. And great thing is, 2020, most Western countries now have this as like a right. You have food, water, warmth, rest, security, safety, right? Police, house, electric, food and water is pretty much provided through MSD. So we have these things, right? So it's how do we pay for it? Politics, don't get into that, but we should have them. The next ones is psychological needs. And this is where it's like, friends, and you're motivated to feel accomplished, and you kind of belong in society. We definitely have lost that over the last 70 years. We've kind of made little segments, groups, but the community's dead is talked about quite often. It takes a community to raise a baby, but yet we have to do it by ourselves. I just put mine to bed. So where's my community? But that's kind of how I look at it, is we need to start thinking about those psychological needs. Now, we can't meet them in society, but how can we meet them in our organizations? And if you ever do any leadership roles or coaching roles, or social leadership versus leadership, you want to make sure that people feel that they belong in the team. So we're moving on from teams. It's about now making sure they feel safe in that team, and they feel that that place is a good, wholesome place to come back to. The last one is self-actualization, right? It's kind of the peak of motivation, and there's lots of names for this, but the reality is that I feel I can control my destiny, and what I'm doing is my destiny, right? That's a good way of looking at it. But I know I can have my potential. I was talking to a young guy who's 19, and did the normal 19-year-old thing. I'm not smart enough for that. And I was like, well, what makes you say that? Oh, I'm not going to university. I said, well, do you think you need university to achieve your goals? He's like, oh, I don't have any goals. Well, do you think that's a good place to start? And now he's got goals, he's already achieving them, and he's already feeling happy. So he's probably, in that sort of mid-tier. But as he progresses, I guarantee you keep talking to me, in 4 years' time, you'll achieve things you never thought was possible, with no money, no education. Because all we need in life is to realize that we can actually get to our potential. And once someone else believes in you, it's very easy to believe in yourself. So we say that teamwork, that helps us ingrain our belongingness and love needs. Giving people self-direction. It kind of is becoming normal now, especially in private organizations, which is great. But rewarding people for the self-direction is also good. So you don't want to say, oh, here's the what's the problem, go fix the how. And then they go and do it. And then you're like, no, don't do that. That's terrible. They won't feel like they have the safety to do it again. And then the last one, of course, is mastery, right? So realizing you can hit your potential and you can master it is massive to people. Look, so you want to create a team, or you're in a team right now, you want to turn it into a team, create a common objective. Promote diverse ways of thinking. So don't actually create a team. There's a great study around productivity increasing, basically old white men in this team. So they created lots of old white men teams, and the productivity increased, right? In the short term, it decreased massively in the long term because there was no innovation. And this is what we see at the moment. Even though there's more female leaders than there is men right now, there's no female board members. And board members are what actually create the strategy for organizations, and they lack innovation. As simple as making sure that you have a good representation of women on your board, of cultures on your board, then suddenly you start picking up on all those things you didn't realize you had. But yeah, it's quite an interesting thing on short-term productivity versus long-term. Team makes decisions together and feel safe to do so. And that's why I talked about when you start thinking about, you don't want to have a team where you're driving it all the time. So like today, for instance, I was at MSD and people were saying, messaging me saying, hey, Michael, can you take control of the conversation? And I was like, no, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be good for the team for me to drive this conversation. You guys need to think of it yourself. I said it in a nice way, of course, but it needs to be a team decision. Otherwise, someone ends up just leading the conversation all the time, which is never good. Did that make sense? So it's very, literally, that's a 5-day course into 5 minutes. There's loads to read on that, by the way. Everything from your Karl Marx right way through to Philippe in 1980s. The whole thing is massive. It's crazy, but it all comes back to, and for those who already know, because you've gone, oh, that makes sense. Daniel Pink's Mastery, Autonomy, and Purpose kind of links into all that kind of area. Any questions? I see shaking heads. Okay. I'll give you guys that. It's so silent online. I love how you guys are all so silent. If we were live, I'd make you jump up and down. There you go, Greg. That'll do.
I think what I find interesting is, although these theories are pretty old and they have been there for a long time, I think the leadership doesn't really create that kind of atmosphere. Let's just take a simple example, as simple as performance reviews. At this time of the year, everyone's doing performance reviews in companies. It's all pretty individual focused.
Totally.
You have to, although you don't like to be an individualist in those kind of conversations, and probably to be confident in those conversations, you have to act like one as much as you don't like to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's I don't know how the leadership reacts to these kind of conversations when we have throw these kind of theories in front of them.
Oh, I totally agree, and they are old. I will give you that. They're old, but the MBAs of 10 years ago, they weren't there. And this is what's quite interesting when you start looking at it. I was very surprised at, even 4 years ago, a friend of mine did the Massey MBA, and how still very top down that was. I'm not saying all leaders in the MBA, but you learn from people who learn from people who learn from people. And next thing you know, if you're right, your KPIs, right, are individual. Your leaders' KPIs are individual, and their leaders' KPIs. So we've got to empathize a little bit. Who's going to make the change? We both can. We really can. So you could say, I love these KPIs. Do you guys mind if we start to look at other KPIs that would benefit your wider KPIs? And they're always go, oh yeah, why not? So excellent. I find that if we collaborate more, we actually get better results. I think if everyone in the team had a collaboration KPI, we would do better. And then leave it as that. Just one little thing, one little change. Your manager will go, oh, that sounds a great idea. Add. Everyone agrees to it. And then basically you all vote on who's collaborating the most, right? It doesn't have to be linked to pay. It has to be linked to visibility of those KPIs. Now, I've changed KPIs very, very quickly over a 14-month period to basically go completely to teams without HR even realizing it. And then, of course, there's a union problem, and then I got in trouble. So everyone in HR on the conversation probably is going, oh, my God, you did what? But yeah, There is other problems though, Zabir. There are unions, there are contracts. These all things need to change very slowly. But what can you do? One small little change, just one small little change. And you could have actually your pay scales based on this, but how you judge your team based on this. One more example, I quite like this example. A financial team in NZ Post. The manager was very, very empowering, and they had all team accountability. It was wonderful to see. Because of that, the manager had no proof that they did a good job, because it showed that the team was doing a good job and didn't need the manager. So he was made redundant, and the team went on strike, refused to work. And I was like, what? Did that work? Yeah, he was brought back. So I had to re-sign a whole new contract, new job, everything else. But it was very, here's Anna. It was very interesting to see that they needed that team, and that team wanted their leader. So it was quite cool. So what can you change? Small things. Go, Joe.
It's pretty common in the Scrum Masters and the coach world as well, right? Like, it's really.
Yeah, we hold a lot of power at the moment, I must admit. Like, if we go on strike, the wheels can stop. And it's quite funny. Or we're all sacked, so because we're all contractors. So.
Yep.
Just back to that performance discussion. So we're just an example of where I'm working at the moment. We've got two teams that sell products, and one team has individual, there's incentives. And one team has individual incentives, and the other team has a group incentive. And for the 2019 year, it was interesting to see that the group with the team incentive smashed it out of the park, and the ones with the individual incentives didn't. And I was quite surprised at that. I didn't think that would happen, and I don't know all of the reasons for it. But it was interesting, just kind of going back to that previous comment around that. But my concern is when you do have a team incentive, you've got someone who's social loafing or not doing it, or if they don't achieve the target, there'll be the diffusion of responsibility. It was everybody else's fault. So I don't know how that kind of fits in.
And this is the biggest concern at the moment, and we almost shouldn't worry about it. But social loafing is a major issue with team dynamics as well. Yeah. You may not like my answer, being in HR, but I am actually a believer that the team should vote them off the island.
I agree. Why not?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
I've done it. I know Victor's done it as well. So the reason why it can't be done long term is because we have too big of bullying laws in this country. I actually only found out recently. So because what I do is this. We're going to go through this next week, but at really high level.
Hang on a minute, Michael. Joe's been trying to speak for 3 minutes.
I'm very patient. It's fine.
That's all right. Go, Joe.
All I was going to say is when we were having the conversation around shared goals and different types of incentives, the team that I led at Air New Zealand, we tried to make some significant changes to our framework, which managed to push quite a lot of boundaries. We got quite far introducing shared goals and different ways of measuring, and really turning up, having a lot of greater transparency around goals and objectives, even within the constraints of the organization's performance management framework. And we had a little squad off to the side, which initially was, I was heavily involved when I was in the HR team. And then when I moved into the digital business, I stepped away from it. And it became completely led by people who were wanting to influence and change the performance management framework, if not at Air New Zealand, but definitely within digital. And it's, I'm happy to share anyone who's interested, how far we actually got. We haven't changed the world, and, this year sort of threw a huge spanner in the works where we haven't even done performance reviews, etc. But we did move the dial quite a lot in that space, and it was all people led, as opposed to HR led.
Joe, what I would like to do, that's a really good podcast idea. You're right to put a note down here and then see if you're comfortable having a podcast about that.
Sure,
cool.
Sure. We've led lots on it. Had lots of talks about it. So yeah, it's definitely a passion of mine. Shaking up performance management, and I bet very it's cringeworthy. Some of the archaic processes that we still have.
Oh, I remember someone quoting very, very politely to me. I was going to come back to Air New Zealand. Michael, Air New Zealand's great on the outside, but on the inside it's rotten. And I was like, what? What happened? It's like on the outside, the customers steal this amazing stuff. But on the inside, it's very archaic, and all the processes, the systems, the tools, how things are done still. So yeah, but I'll be very interested to know about that. I think
like lots of organisations, though,
100%, 100%.
Always greener on the other side, right?
Oh, definitely. The amount of times that I've gone, oh, that looks really cool. I want to go do that for a bit. I get there and I'm like, you guys lied to me. This is going to be hard work. No, I love that.
I'm pleased.
Being new to Air New Zealand and being new to digital, I'd love to hear more.
I'm blessed at Genesis. We do Scrum at scale. So we have what's called service to the organisation. So all the Scrum Masters get together once a week, and impediments we talk about and help resolve those impediments. But actually facilitating a bunch of Scrum Masters is hard work.
Because we all know it all, right? Jeez, like it's terrible. I used to refuse to call myself a Scrum Master for that reason. But I will move us on. But the whole pay team performance thing, we have got a sticky for as well. It is a big section. It's not in this course, but I think we should definitely try and reserve half an hour for it, because I love to brainstorm you guys on that. Yeah. So 5 dysfunctions of the team. I'll whip through this because we're a little bit behind. Has anyone read the book?
Patrick Lencioni.
Most of you. Good.
All
right. So I can really go through it fast then. Absence of trust leads to invulnerability complexes, right? So the idea of this book, guys, if you haven't read it, is basically he comes up with 5 things that cause other things. So you look out. If you see there's an absence of trust, you know there's an invulnerability complex. If there's a fear of conflicts in the team, you know there's an artificial harmony. Like, how often do we see the passive-aggressive Kiwi? It looks like everything's great. It's not. If people aren't committing to things, it's normally because of ambiguity. I'm big for that. If I have a leader who doesn't give me clear, concise KPIs and objectives, I just don't commit, and I try to reduce my hours. Last one, avoidance of accountability. That's massive, especially as we move to Agile. People are trying to avoid the accountability trap. Just low standards. You have to come accountable. I had the Scrum Masters today, funny enough, talk to me and say, I don't want to be accountable for things. I'm a Scrum Master. All I do is coach. I said, well, no, sorry. You've got to be accountable for what we've said a Scrum Master does. And then not caring about results. Like if you ever part of Agile implementation and there's any sort of review, see who doesn't turn up. Because those who don't turn up, they don't care about the results. They have an ego problem. And I find that a lot. I tend to like reflections, or they call them retrospectives, and sprint reviews. If you don't turn up to those areas, I know I have an individuality problem. And that's basically the whole book. There you go. You'd have to read it now. So specialization, low motivation, silo experience of the customer versus cognitive diversity, which is team cross-functionality and closer to the customer. Again, we're not saying that one's not important. We're just saying that one is probably more valuable. Which leads you to this lovely diagram here. So download it, do it online. Very interesting. I like it. I'm a massive concrete sequential person. Like I am linear and I'm literally absolute. If you try to be all abstract with me or bounce the conversation around, I'm not happy. Hence Mina. Mina is literally abstract random, like the complete opposite. We disliked each other at the start. We do all that same MBA together. She's so abstract random that she's not turned up tonight. Like, oh, my boss cut his finger off. Ooh, that's horrible. Okay, she has a good reason. I probably shouldn't have told you that. So that's a good test to do. I do that with teams, and I get everyone to stand in the corners they are. It's quite cool, actually. Everyone heard of T-shaped? Like, it's so overused, though. That's the problem I have with it. But, part of this course, I had to remind you, there is I-shaped people. They're an expert in one thing. There are generalists, like a GM. They are general managers. They're capable of many things, but they're not experts in many things, in anything. T-shaped are capable of a lot of things and expert in one of them. So I've done it now. You don't have to be T-shaped. You don't. Like, that comes from IT. And personally, it doesn't work as we move into business agility. Why do I say that? Because, look, you can do a little bit of marketing and customer centricity design, but let's be fair. Someone, if you look at the orchestra model by Harvard Business Review, you'll find that they realize there are 3 types of skill sets. I think it's like a technical, emotive, and people. I think that's the 3. It's in the course later on, but it's actually really interesting because it's very true. Like a software development engineer is typically an introvert. They're typically certain thought process, normally quite high IQs, low EQs normally, love them to bits, but they're very hard to actually interact with people. The reason why my job even existed as a business analyst was because I would translate it things for them, right? Sounds terrible, right? I had someone ringing me up on the way home asking what a BA does. I said, they're a translator. So what does that mean? So translate from these really intelligent software engineers from these marketing people who can't seem to keep them into the concrete sequential, it's like this. So that's my joke anyway, as a BA. I draw pretty pictures and translate. So I don't believe that T-shaped is going to be the thing of the future, because I think personally you're going to have, unless you want to be really pragmatic about it and say a T-shape is you can open emails and all these little random things. In fairness, you're going to have teams of probably 5 or 6 that will have everything they need in the team to do what needs to be done. And they may help each other, but it's not like a software engineer is going to basically do the financial job, who they're both going to do the people job. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. Sorry to anyone who really likes that idea. I remember, these are the views of Michael Law, not held by Surge management coach Definitive. Self-organizing teams. Oh, we're so far behind. I'm terrible. Sorry, guys. Right. We're not going to do this, but I'll put a note to myself to remind me to actually give you guys the instructions on how to do this. It's quite a cool little exercise to do if you want to do self-organizing teams. In fact, Nomad 8 have a really good one, so I might even just steal theirs and link it to it.
Self-organizing or self-selection? This looks like self-selection.
Self-organizing is a term I've used. So self-selection is when you self-select into a team. I totally agree. But self-organizing is you give people the ability to organize into as many teams as they want. So how do you say? Self-selection would be, okay, I'm the project manager. I need 2 teams. Self-select. Whereas self-organizing is like, this is a problem I've got to solve. Please go find it. So tomorrow, guys, we're going to design thinking. You will go into teams. But because I'm not sure who's going to be here tomorrow, I don't want you self-selecting teams. We'll have teams of 5. If there's more than 6 of us, we'll have 2 teams. We have some problems to go through. The problems we're looking at is carbon credits and cardboard recycling. So these are true problems from my local council, and this is their basically free consulting services for you guys to do the work for them. Experience. So we've gone through strategic agility, we've gone through cognitive diversity, and now we're looking at experience, right? So customer of the future, we're saying that they want people to understand them, 74%. They want to pay more, 86%. And they want a more positive experience, 3%. So these are stats from today, right? Literally, I think it's 2019. So it's the customer now. Like, customers want this right now. And yet we don't even bring the customer on the journey of a company. So this next section now is about, okay, talking about real customer experience and how do we define that. You guys can't listen, can you? I just realized. How do videos? This video here, so I'll turn the volume off for myself. I wonder if I can talk about this. So I'm not a fan of PwC by any means, but this is a really good advert. Long story short, it's a story about this lady, and she wakes up and she's like, oh, I really want to like not go to work today. It's a really horrible day. She wipes her face, things that brushes her teeth. She'd love to have a day off of work. She'll ring the boss and tell him that she can't be in today. Oh, yeah, right. Big joke, right? So she knows she's got to go to work. It's America, right? So they work 12 hours a day. She saw this advert for this really cool breakfast. And she thought, oh, I know. I'll go get it. Oh, greasy, cheesy, $1.99. This is amazing. Actually, this is better than the real advert. I'm enjoying this, right? She walks in there and she's just not impressed. And Darth Vader's son's in there. Legit, they say that, by the way, I'm not being mean. And she doesn't get the experience she wants. And she runs out of there as quick as she came in. Fast forward a little bit. She feels really bad, sends a bad tweet, doesn't quite like it. She feels quite bad, though. I mean, you know, maybe, I'll pause it, maybe that guy just had a really bad night. Maybe he's not getting paid enough. But it doesn't matter anymore because she's already made a choice. She's already tweeted, bad experience. She goes to a local. They say her name. Oh, the usual. You know, the guy's dreamy, of course. Yeah, see that usual. Oh, yes, please. So they know what she wants before she wants it. It's a bright experience. It's what she's expecting. So the main thing I want to get across here, guys, is about what she's expecting. I mean, you go to McDonald's, you expect McDonald's, right? But if you got McDonald's service in a 5-star restaurant, you wouldn't enjoy it. So it's that relative of what you're expecting. So she tweets out, oh, this is amazing. So they stamp her card 3 times. Thank you very much, right? Long story short, she, you know, feels bad for that guy. Goes back to the office, realizes this is a horrible work environment. We should all go and get coffee at Pablo's. Pablo, that's it. Pablo's. What a cool name. And like, yeah, just more dreamy smiles and really cheesy American advertising. But the conversation that I really wanted to get across was the idea that even the big companies now are realizing very quickly that it's actually the experience and it's the relative experience of that individual. And that's what we're trying to get across in this customer experience side now. So what we find is if you have advertising that doesn't match the actual, customers get very grumpy now. And the younger they are, the more grumpy they are because they've learned that they have rights. They can tweet, they can tell their friends, they can do all kinds of things, right? And it's having a bigger impact than, say, I had in my generation because all we had was email. In my mum's generation, all they had was letters. I don't know. So what we're telling to find now is that must be the same. But what we're also finding is that it must be the same level of marketing through the entire company. And that's what Pablo's did. Pablo's basically came up with the whole idea that everything must be completely end to end. So an example of this is the Temkin Group. They earn $1 billion annually, right? And they added an additional 700 million in 3 years into investing in customer experience. Right? So it's not just about being people-centric and treating customers really well. There's huge money in it. Why? Because, well, Sabir's proving it right now. Like, what are you drinking, Sabir? You're on mute, buddy.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm just having tea.
Tea. And which brand of tea have you bought?
I think it's Dilma. My wife does the shopping normally.
Yeah.
But put some mint leaves in it, so it's pretty refreshing.
That's pretty cool. But you didn't buy the cheapest tea? So you don't buy the cheapest tea. You buy the tea that sort of suits your experience. And tea's the reason why I love tea. I'm British, obviously, so like love my tea. It does not matter to me what price my tea bags are. I will buy the same tea bags because they just everything about the brand. I don't know what the brand's called. It's that black box, Chandui.
I think so.
Chandui, there we go. I like the brand of it. I like the tea bag of it. If everything from start to finish makes sense, the website makes sense. Everything's perfect. They could double the price of that box, and I'll still buy it. Right. So there's big money in this. What we're finding is that even companies that are doing very well in customer experience are not charging enough, which is actually quite funny. The second problem we're having at the moment is companies are doing customer experience transformations and only transforming one part of the organization. So the perfect example of that was banks. Like, I can't name bank names, too many of you in banks. But like, for instance, like some banks had their digital products, had an amazing service online. It was fantastic. And you used to walk into their store and it was like going back to the 1990s. And you're like, well, what just happened here? Like, what I was expecting of this bank is no longer here. And people used to say, oh, the barrier to entry or the barrier to exit was really high in banks. Not anymore. So I've got a bank with every single bank because I'm just like that. I just can't help it. And what's it called? Not Commonwealth. Look at my apps. Cooperative. Easy. I remember ASB, I can name them guys. We talked about this and they didn't do it for some reason. Probably have got it now. But Cooperative Bank basically just messaged me, do you want a bank account? I was like, yeah. Like, sweet, take a photo of yourself. Click, bank account. I was like, that's awesome. The barrier to exit, much easier now. So I've now got Cooperative Bank. And they gave me $20 as well. I love that. So I promote Cooperative Bank, even though I don't use them. It sounds terrible, doesn't it? Like, I don't use them, but I promote them because they gave me $20. Too often are strategic transformations about high performance. They're not naming any names, but there are certain frameworks out there that it's all about the performance or the efficiency. And even Spotify's a bit like this, right? So lots of models that basically you bring in, and everyone thinks it's all about the framework. So you go to some courses, guys, about Agile, and they'll tell you, sweet, let's get in a Scrum. And they'll do you 2 days of a Scrum course. And you think Agile is all about Scrum. And it's like, you ask them, where's the customer? They're like, oh, we have a product owner. That's not a customer. That's a customer representation. It's not actually a customer. It's not customer involvement. So in SAFe, for instance, shouldn't use the name. In some frameworks, there's this lovely image here, and someone put a big arrow. Found the customer. So if you look at this diagram, do you find this customer-centric? Yeah. And it's not. It's one of the biggest things that Business Agility 5.0 for SAFe has now changed. They put the customer in many locations. It's still not customer-centric as an experience outcome. It's about putting a technology solution around the organization and then saying it's customer-centric. So I'm hoping I'll be able to show you guys why that is over the next few days. Not saying SAFE's wrong. I've been quoted, and I'll stand by this. SAFE is a gateway drug to Agile. It's not Agile. It's a gateway drug. It's like, you start drinking a cider and then you move up to ale. Even in Scrum, I just spoke about this, you have product owners. They're not customers. They're not customers, guys. They're product owners. I mean, they're better than nothing, but they're not actually customers. So during my first thesis, because I did 3, I talked about actually bringing the customer into the team properly. And what was the ROI on that? It wasn't that great, to be honest. So I'll scrap that one, wrote a new thesis. But it was interesting to see that customer involvement is it's not done very often. So in theory, it should raise productivity up and innovation up by massive amounts. In practice, it didn't work very well, mostly because I couldn't find enough people who did it. I look forward to the day when we've all got actual customers as our product owners, and they have to do the test again.
Michael, can I just ask a question about SAFE there?
Of course you can.
So why wouldn't it necessarily be customer-centric if the customer wasn't aware of everything that happens behind the background there, and if it actually results in giving the customer what they need or want at the right price, etc.?
So at a real high level, right? Up top here, enterprise creates strategic themes. They don't talk to the customer to create those themes. The strategic themes are then given to epic owners, which is the organizational middle management normally, right? They have a little Kanban board, and they sort of pull ones as they go along. Budgets are assigned. They're written down into value streams. Now, the value streams are meant to be aligned to the customer. 4 out of 5 times, SAFE even admits this, that the customer is never involved. They are aligned to value streams that customers are perceived to be on. Now, SAFE 5.0 does fix a lot of this by bringing design thinking into it. So what we're going to learn tomorrow actually has been brought into SAFE 5.0. And I've heard some good things about it. I'm still not fully convinced, but it is a step in the right direction. So what you want to see, there's a really good report. I had it around somewhere. I'll find it, make a note. There's a journal on bringing the customer into the board. So this study basically did a quick study over 100 people who brought the customer onto the board. And what they found was bringing the customer onto the board, i.e. creating these strategic themes from the board level, having the customer involved at the start meant more innovation, less downtime, not building products the customer didn't want because the customer's there. All these little things, a ripple effect from that. What this still shows me, even 5.0, is leadership know best. So Amber style, I know best because I've done 27 years in this organization and I know what customers want. What's TikTok? Sorry, what's that? We're never going to be able to keep up with what's going on. And what we've got to realize is bringing the customer in on value stream, maybe a step forward, but it's not the right step. Being customer centric is actually plonking the customer right in the center, and then we build around them, right? And constantly integrating with them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I can go on to a tangent otherwise. My bad. Some of the excuses that we have is we're too afraid to fail in front of customers. And that used to be legit in probably the 90s. If you fail in front of a customer, customers would then go to the media, and the media would tell you on you. Now, if you fail openly and transparently in a customer, failures have actually been known to help those champion your products. As long as the failure is only small. If you do a Windows Vista on us, then you're going to be kicked off. No one's going to buy from you for a while. But if you basically do a version 3.12 and it's bad and you unwind it because the customer asked you to, then customers will go, wow, they really listened to us. So I think the 90s, that was legit, to be honest, but not nowadays. We know best. So, and I get it. I do get it. When you think about it, you've been in the company 27 years. Of course you think you know best. I think I know best about business agility, but I can guarantee you there'll be hundreds of people out there who know more than I do. And See how arrogant that was? Thousands of people out there know more than I do. Keep adding numbers. And I find them like random people who've like, one of the guys who wrote the book on agility, P. Tillman. I messaged him on LinkedIn. We got chatting. Wow, amazing guy. I've been doing this stuff for 40 years. Like, just absolutely, like, where have you been in my life for the last 10 years? He was great. So we always have things to learn, and it's being open to that. I love this one. It's different here. It is different. I totally agree it's different. Doesn't mean the values are indifferent. So that's kind of those three main reasons you're here constantly, again and again and again and again. So if you're product centric, you're building things no one wants, right? Or your risk is you're building things no one wants, I should probably say. Cold old. I don't know what that means. Why is it cold? I'm not sure, actually. Sorry. It's efficient, though. I'll give you that. When you're product-centric, you're very efficient. A good example of that is the difference between Toyota and Ford. Ford were more efficient than Toyota, right? But Toyota were more productive. And they've had the whole idea of productivity versus efficiency again, because Ford would create things that like you had to buy. It's like that. You can't change it, right? Toyota had a pull system, which basically meant that they can adapt it on the fly to customer needs. So they were slower to market, but they sold more. The new way of thinking now is customer experience. So you want the customers to feel like they're a part of something that's bigger than just buying a product, right? Or if you're not doing that, they're just gonna go for the lowest price. Like Zubair's tea bags. Like they buy Dilmah, there'll be a reason behind that. It may be subconscious, but there'll be a reason. Whereas if you didn't care, you'd basically buy the cheapest average tea bag you probably could. And you get some pretty cheap tea bags, actually. And it does actually reduce advertisement spend. So I don't want to mix up marketing with advertisement. So marketing is the end-to-end customer like experience, whereas advertisement is the way that you go out there and try to get lead generation. So it's a big difference, but it actually reduces it. Why? Because people support other people. To give you an idea, guys, my marketing spend for this course was 0. Like, my advertising. Now I'm doing it. My advertising spend for this course was 0, right? So I don't advertise for my courses. I just ask you all very nicely at the end, if you enjoyed my course, please post on LinkedIn. That's all I do. And then some really cool champions like Neha brings like 5 people into the course for me. Yeah, Neha's great. Thanks, Neha.
She's pretty amazing, eh?
She is, yeah. She is absolutely awesome. And this is the thing what I love about this movement, right? Is we basically are getting more and more people who are awesome, and it's just widening our net of knowledge. Amar went straight off yesterday, by the way, and set up the alumni group on LinkedIn. I was like, sweet, add me.
I get to work with Neha every day.
Oh, do you? Oh, lucky.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
I tried to sneak in there, actually. I was like, hey, because I know a few people there, and I was like, hey, I want to work with you guys. You guys are cool. Can you pay for me for 1 day? No. Okay.
No budget.
And I can't work for free in Auckland because it's just too far for me to go. I work for free in Wellington. I don't mind working for free in Wellington. I just enjoy what I do. But Auckland, no. You pay for my flights. So you're saying we need to find out what our customer wants before we start building stuff? Yes. Yes, you do. Employee motivation, Dan Pink. It's in every single course in IC Agile. So if you haven't watched it, it's in the course notes anyway. Who's at the top of a organization at the moment? Excluding the board.
CEO.
Yeah. Who's below it? Who's below them?
CIO, CFO.
C-suite in general.
Yes, C executives. Yeah.
And then so on, right? Like, it doesn't matter where you are. You always know that there is going to be knowledge workers at the bottom who know more than most people about delivering value. And then there's management specialists, functional heads, senior leadership, and the CEO. All right. We create this pyramid structure since, I'm not gonna say 1910s because I think it's more like 1930s. And it is getting better. Like everyone who was in work in the 90s will probably remember the big culls of supervisors. And now we're seeing the big cull of management specialists. I always joke, I say, when's the CEO going to cull themselves? Because in all honesty, like the more we get women leaders, they're starting to like flatten everything. And I'm loving it. That's why I'm a big supporter of women leaders, because it's not because I'm sexist, because I want women over men. It's because I know they're, on average, aggregately, do more people-centric organizations than men do. Sorry, guys, it's just true. Those making decisions are not near the customers. Yep, I think Simon Sinek says it best. CEOs say they're customer-centric. It's like, no, you look after people who look after people who look after people who look after the customer. Like, you're a people leader. It's a massive bureaucracy. Like, if you want to see a waste, go to the government. It's because they can't get rid of anybody because there's contracts galore. They date back to like 1985. Knowledge worker cannot make autonomous decisions. You think about Dan Pink, right? Purpose, autonomy, mastery, right? There's none of that can happen. I think it was it Zabar? Was it you earlier on who spoke about KPIs? Like, how do you get that KPIs? In that system, you can't, because if you are the knowledge worker and you can convince your manager to do that for you, the head of the department needs to be brought on board as well, which means the CIO needs to be brought on board, which means the CEO needs to be brought on board, which means the board needs to be brought on board. So we can do small things, we can, but there's a reason why, like myself now, I'm focusing on the boards now. And no board of a big company would ever listen to me. But I'm actually looking after like 150 to 400 employees, that kind of region. And I'm trying to get those boards on board. Oh, I'm so funny. Because that's where I'm going to hit people now, is I'm going to go right straight to the top, explain why things need to change, and hopefully create some lasting change. Does that all make sense, guys? I'm going a bit quick, I know. You guys are so silent. I love it. You guys need more wine. So we start getting into a lot of, you'll find there's a lot of bespoke stuff here. Feel free to use it. Like this one here, I created an ACC to explain the styles of leadership. Very basic. I went through some case studies and I was like, I think it almost linearly goes down the more a leader understands things. So the micromanager, we've all had one of those. There's actually some positive stuff with repetitive manual tasks. So a micromanager works with that. Move into the management phase. It's positive in short-term engagements, i.e. a project manager. A project manager does very good short-term results. And there's a lot of studies that show that contractors can be leveraged for short-term engagements for higher productivity gains, right? And I'm sorry for those of you in culture, like it's not great. Like it's not great because you just burn them out, use and abuse them and get rid of them. But it is good for the organization. So I see why they do it. I'm not the greatest fan, but hey, I'd rather have all OPEX. You move into facilitator. Now, interesting thing is that we start moving into what I class as social leadership. Some leaders have moved this direction themselves. They sort of facilitate the learning and development of their teams, which is really quite cool. I love it, right? But we see more of this in what's called a Scrum Master or an Agile Facilitator, right? I like this. It's a democratic leadership style. It's positive for highly trained teams. And that's the reason why Scrum Masters are meant to be delivering such high performing results, because they influence, but the leader decides, it's kind of supporting behaviors, but it's not like telling them what to do. So it's quite cool. Most leaders don't pass this stage, but if you go on a course or two, you move into what I call the coach phase. And this is where you're basically like helping create goals and then unwinding those steps that someone needs to take to achieve those goals, right? Again, like this is not about creating a hierarchy, but at the moment in my world, there's enterprise coaches, agile coaches, there's business agility coaches. Like we all make up the word, but it's about coaching being a style of leadership. But it has to be coaching. You can't be an agile coach, for instance, and then be more of a dictator of what framework you need to do. I see many coaches come in and be like, yep, we need to have safe, we'll do it like this, teams do as they're told, you need a work in progress limit, and all these fancy words. You're like, what just happened? It's not coaching. And coaching is the only way really you can perceive high performance, in my opinion.
No, must do Scrum ceremonies.
Yeah, exactly. So for those who don't know Scrum, there is a whole bunch of ceremonies. Like there's a stand-up, a sprint planning, a retrospective, all these terms. And there's kind of an industry standard that's come about how to do them. None of it is real. It's all fake. And it's all self-fulfilling as well. Because if you get trained by someone who says a stand-up must be 15 minutes, then of course that person says you must do it in 15 minutes. You're not coaching, guys. You're not facilitating. You're basically managing as a Scrum Master, which basically means you're doing a very bad ROI.
Is there much of this of Scrum outside of IT?
Yes. So there's now officially more Scrum outside of IT than in IT. Just no one talks about it. Because
and is it with the same? Has it got the same labels to it, or?
Yep. So I've implemented Scrum, finance, HR, change management, EPMO, senior leadership teams,
information security, operations, service and support.
People built cars of it. Scrum was used in construction, so they changed the name to be called Agile Construction. But Scrum in general is only good at sustaining complex products. Now, if you haven't got a complex product, you probably don't need Scrum, but it is a good thing to start off with, and then you move from there. So we do go through all these frameworks, and I can go into way more details about implementing them if you guys need. What I would say is I'm a big fan of saying, where do you want to start? Because I guarantee you won't end there 3 months from now. I haven't got a single team that's worked with me. I've had over like 400 teams, maybe more now actually. Over 400 teams I've had, and none of them have ended up with Scrum. Not one. So it goes to show you that Scrum was great in the 90s. Whether it's not good now, it's a different story. Scrum's great for project managers though, because you can predict things better. Debatable, but
unfortunately, that's used as a yardstick these days. If you can
exactly, and that's why I hate it. That's why I hate Scrum now. It's great though for people who've never seen anything agile, right? Because it creates a structure. Frameworks are great for that structure. But what I say to people is, look, in your reflection, or retrospective, right? Talk about what went wrong, what went right, and what can you do better. And if you basically do that, I guarantee you will retro out of Scrum very quickly, and you'll create your own process. And that's if you go through like I'm missing my books today, Discipline Agile. It's a framework for frameworks, and it states that every team should have their own bespoke process, and that's because every team is different to other teams. So it's that kind of catch-22. We're all different, but none of us are different, but we are different. Does that make sense?
Shuhari.
Yeah, Shuhari. Shuhari, by the way, guys, is like a stepping gate of a journey. Shu, we look at basically you're learning the ropes. Ha, you've understood the ropes. You're going to start branching out a little bit. And then Re, you've mastered it. So therefore, you know the rules. So you do what you want. If a team shows me they have the capabilities to be able to continuously improve by themselves, I'm not going to stand in their way. So that's why I like to be a super leader. It's basically, if you want high performance and innovation, get the hell out of your team's way. Like, simple as that. You can't just do this though, guys, right? You can't just like rock into a team and be like, laissez-faire, do what you want, because you'll get no results. Like, absolutely. I've seen the best business coaches rock into organizations and tell the leaders they can do whatever they want, basically, and they got nowhere, and they wonder why. So here's another one of Michael's fun diagrams. I invented this basically because I was talking to my children, and I read some books called Child Development Theory, and it sounds terrible to say out loud, but it's very true. Child development theory and team development theory are very similar. You start with teaching, with permission, of course. You teach, you facilitate, you coach, and then you support, and there's a journey. So when you got a fresh team, so when I get a fresh team, I'll go into teaching phase and I'll evaluate them very quickly. In the first 2 weeks, I'll know where they are. I'll score a 0 to 4. And then I'll know if I have to do more teaching, if I need to facilitate their leadership. Sorry, if I need to facilitate their learning, if I need to coach them through their goals, or if they just need support from me. And what's great about this, guys, is that teaching can be very labor intensive, whereas support is very inexpensive on your resources. So I can support hundreds and hundreds of teams. I can probably only teach about 2 or 3 teams a week. So, and then somewhere in between is the other ones. When I'm a coach, I normally have about 300 FTE. When I'm facilitating, I could probably only Scrum Master about 6 teams max, preferably 5. Some people say you can only Scrum Master 2. So it's situational with the team, which if you read books on situational leadership, that's the whole basis of that diagram. Again, these are all, if you can't find these diagrams, let me know, because I've got them like hidden everywhere. But I need to put more in the course, because I want you guys to print them off and give them to your team and be like, where am I? What kind of leader am I? We're over time, guys. I'm so bad. Funny picture.
Hey, Michael.
Yes.
Sorry, I have to leave now.
That's all right, buddy.
Excuse me for this. You continue, and I'll see you tomorrow.
No worries, but this will be posted up, by the way, so you can watch the last 5 minutes. There's only 5 more minutes left anyway.
Okay, then that's fine. I can hang around.
All right. Leadership, very quickly. Leadership, right? And bear in mind, we've now got a 3-day course on leadership. So it's basically this, but expanded. Ignore some of this. So hierarchies, slow to respond, not motivating, reduces innovation. Autonomy gives intrinsic motivation, new ways of working, and high innovation, right? It's more valuable. So it leads us to the end result of a green. So you remember we've basically gone from orange to green now. It is a big thing. Lots of things have changed the last 50 years. That's the reason why you really need to layer this information. The goal is to achieve a vision, to focus on culture and people, empowerment leadership, high intrinsic motivation. It's pluralistic, right? We're a family. Now, if that grates you a little bit, you have to ask, why is that a bad thing? Because I spend longer at work than I do with my own family. So I want to have a good time. Like, I'm about to leave MSD because I'm not having fun anymore. And I don't feel like we're part of a family. So it's as simple as that to me. Like, yeah, I just think if you're not loving what you do, you need to look at moving. It's consensus-orientated service. Ben and Jerry, Southwest Airlines, before they drag people off the airplanes. There are other ones. There are other green organizations. They're actually quite hard to find. And people say, oh, this is the green organization. And I check them and they're not really green. I'm very harsh on my stuff. So business agility, what is it? It is a delivery model that enables organizations to respond to change in customer demand for the greatest competitive advantage. Right? So a really wise guy wrote that. What's his name? Me. So there is no definition of business agility. Okay, guys, agility has been around for like 300 years, been popular the last 80 years. there is like people want to create a manuscript for it, and I'm like, guys, you're just overcomplicating it, right? The end of the day is it is people centric, it is value driven, so just get on with it. All right. So what's happening is people are overcomplicating it. If you ask me, here's an idea of how you overcomplicate it. You go agile mindset, lean mindset, design thinking, strategy, and it's all these things in one. And then you get people like me, 10 years ago who went, what is that? And you just don't need to worry about it. What you've learned in these 2 sessions is all you really need to know about the values of business agility. And I'll explain why in a minute. It's flexible, adaptable, and responsive. So that's kind of your behavioral traits. You'll hear me say the words flexibility, adaptability, responsiveness all the time. And the reason why I do that is because that's the brass tacks of where it started from many, many moons ago. So long story short, guys, this is the end of it. Strategic agility over planning. Cognitive diversity over specialization. Experience over the product. Empowerment over hierarchy. Although the things on the bottom have value, we value the things on top more. And that's business agility. And it can be made really complicated, but I really hope these last 2 sessions for you have brought in why we need to change. And I guess some of the reasons why we've chosen at Surge.coach, these 4 specific areas. They align to the studies, they align to the meta-analysis, they align to my own bias as well, I'll fully admit. There was like 12 and we brought them down to 4. If you focus on these 4 values, you have business agility, okay? How you achieve business agility is fully up to you. We will go through the frameworks and tools tomorrow. And you can go, oh, I know design thinking, I know SAFe now, I know Scrum now, I know agile delivery now, I know all these things. And you can go, I'm an expert in all this stuff now. Oh, I can transform it all. Excellent. But I really want to stay in the idea that actually it's value-driven societies, right? So I have got 5 more minutes of stuff, but do not feel compelled to stay. If you want to go out to your families and anything else, this is going to be extracurricular activities. So who would like to go? Bye, Annette.
Okay, I need to go. See
That's
you guys.
fine, buddy. I'm recording this anyway, so even if everyone leaves, I'll still record it and carry on.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries, buddy. And I know it's late for us guys, but so that's the crux. There's nothing else to business agility. And, it's all about being people-centric and following a set of values that leads to that people-centricity, right? Has anyone got any reflections like, oh, that's simple, or oh, that's actually quite complex? Like, how are you feeling about that? Is it what you're expecting? Go on, Joe.
I feel like someone has to say something.
Go, Joe. Go do it.
I mean, I really like the simplicity of it. I was just, when I was listening to you, Michael, I was wondering though, is strategic agility a value?
Oh, that's your English major coming out, isn't it?
I'm not sure, but
it's a fair point. I will check that actually. Can we class strategic agility? Because it's a mindset, because it's basically strategic agility mindset, which is not really a value. I see what you're saying.
And maybe that's, maybe it's calling that out more. I don't know. I think sometimes what does it, what strategic agility actually mean? It'll mean lots of, it could potentially have quite broad meaning. So.
That's a fair point.
Strategic, because it's a newer type of word, I suppose. Strategic planning is a lot clearer to people.
Yes.
More familiar to people. So I think it was more, when I was listening to you just talk it through the first time, and that was the point for me.
It's a very good point. And there's strategic agility has been around for a wee while, but worse than agile, it has no definitive answer. My professor was like, it's a mindset. I said, well, we say that in agile as well. It doesn't mean anything. So I tried to create strategic agility as to be more, it's a more emergent. The practices behind agility is about being more emergent, having a vision, that sort of thing. So there is behaviors driven behind each one of these. And what you'll find out next week, on each one of these, there's KPIs. And that's kind of the main problem I have. Like if you think about the Agile Manifesto, 4 values, 12 principles. For those who haven't seen them, they're in lesson 8, I think, and I've probably them in there. What you'll find is like they didn't come with a how-to manual, because it was 17 guys who rocked into a ski field and just thought, that's a good idea. This is how we sell more of our courses. What we've done here is we've created values that are linked to real things. And then we tell you how to measure as well. So the idea is by next week, you could go into your organization without anyone knowing, and you can measure where they are on their journey by the values. So from a 0 to 100, and I know Greg's used our current state analysis already. From 0 to 100, where do we sit? So for instance, I've already got ASB times 25. So I've got 25 of your ASBs already. So for those who are ASB, I've already got you. So what we're doing, we're creating a database of all the metrics for free. So all I ask is I get to keep them so I can do more studies. I just want to do more studies. I just like studies. So if I find out that basically most organizations in New Zealand have very good experience, but less cognitive diversity, and then we changed cognitive diversity a little bit and it increased this, then we can actually really see it. So, yeah.
So Michael, how is that being measured? Is it the behaviours that are behind each of the values that you would assess against?
I'll quickly show you.
And I mean, don't want to get into semantics, but why wouldn't strategic agility be a value if there's behaviours that connect back?
Well, that's why I'll probably wait until the end of the course, and then someone can tell me if we still have that concern. Yeah, like I see why, based on what you've seen so far, I can see why you would say it. But I think we'll probably wait to the end just to double check. But here's our bar that you guys will learn quite inside and out. And we've just done a telecommunications industry average as well. So I got like 100 people come through. So as you can see, strategic agility, cognitive diversity, experience, empowerment. So the idea is that each one of these has been linked to an actual measurement, right? So if your strategic agility is driven by the customer and teams use this to drive decision-making, it's green. If it's tribe, then it's orange, or it's amber, or it's red, or no one gets this really, it's magenta. It shouldn't really exist. And the idea is 12 questions, very simply. I've had people who are contractors now who rock into organizations, just quickly fill this out and then go to the manager and go, I think I found our current state. Here's our future state. This is how we're going to transform. And they look amazing, and I mean, Anna will probably tell us how bad transformation plans really are. Hey, Anna. Yeah, they're terrible. Like, so what we're trying to do is make it very simple. It's like, here's a starting point. Here's your current state, future state. And what you'll go through, guys, is actually, like, for instance, if you were here, how do I get to here? And I give you some recommendations of what you could use. It's very hard for me to do all scenarios, but a lot of scenarios will be there. But by Thursday next week, you should have already had most of the knowledge. And then I'm hoping you've gone through the workbook and had a little quick go. So we have our one-on-one. You can say, I used it, Michael. It was great. Or I used it, Michael, and it was terrible. It didn't work at all. Because most people end up with like it looking a bit like this, very, very similar, with the odd one being a different color, right? Something like that. But some people, it is like completely random. So the random ones are much harder. So when you do it, it's random. Like, it's a lot harder for you to change management point of view. But in this case, it's very easy. You want to bring your mindset and your consistency up. It's very simple. Then it's like 2 outcomes, 1 objective, a couple of outputs. I'm just saying words now. Sorry, you'll know what I mean next week. but yeah, with business agility, the main thing to remember is it is all a mindset. Like, everything's still based on a mindset. You could say it's a growth mindset, but in reality, it's not quite a growth mindset. It's more of an EQ, continuous improvement mindset. So when you hear people say, I'm only good at some things, I give up when it's hard, I take criticism personally, that kind of stuff. They have a fixed mindset and sometimes a growth mindset. So I don't like to I guess, push on to growth mindset book, but it's a good stepping stone for that. I'm going to whip through this massively quickly. Feel free to jump off if you want to, guys, but I'll record it so you can always look at it. Some key EQ skills for a mindset. So these are things, if you start doing transformations, you create a strategy, but then if you're going to have people coaching the transformation, you probably look out for certain EQ skills. Grit, positive attitude, thirst for knowledge, objective focused, willingness to fail. Has anyone tested their grit yet? No? All right, tomorrow, I want to know everyone's grit. I'm going to make a note for that because otherwise I'll forget. What's your grit? So it's a very interesting score. 2.5 to 5. Don't try and fake it. It doesn't work. But Mike's there, by the way. He has really low grit. I was really surprised. So don't feel bad if you get a low grit score. I've met people with really high grit scores. They are just like crazy people who basically don't do anything else but do their goals. You know, I think I'm goal orientated, but I'm obviously not. I got a 3.2 grit score. Grit score goes up as you get older, which is quite interesting. Why does it even matter? Well, life satisfaction goes up the higher score you have as well. So makes sense. You stick at your goals, you complete your goals. Goals equal happiness. So it kind of makes sense there. But have a good grit score. It's quite cool. This is Michael Law's or Surge.Coach's like strategy plan, right? This is how that up there is built. This little canvas, a Surge canvas, which you can download yourself. You can put in your print off at A0 and put it in your organization. Again, there's no IP. Just do what you want. But I created this little diagram because this is how I started businesses and products for like a decade now. And I didn't realize that it was green or business agility. So I've added these words in since. So business agility could be looked as design thinking plus agile delivery. It's a very simple way of looking at it, right? And I look at it in terms of, I call it the 7 circumstances of business agility. Why do I call it that? It just, like, I think, was it Plato or someone back then? He created 7 circumstances, which even today the police still use. Why were you doing that? Who were you with? Where were you? What were you doing? How are you doing that? In what way were you doing that? And when were you doing that? So police use that inquiry. I look at it more like the idea of, why do you get out of bed? Like, we could always stay in bed and go on the dole if we want to. So why do you get out of bed? As a company, why do you exist? Who do you look to serve? Where are you looking to win? What problems are you looking to solve? How will you deliver the value to solve that problem? In what way will you deliver value? And when are you planning for the work to be done? So that's, for me, that's just strategy 101. And I tell you now, if you remember those questions, you could be in any boardroom meeting, project management meeting, steering group, and you sound like the smartest person in the room. And it doesn't make any sense to me, because why are we doing something if you don't know what problem we're solving? So when you, and you'll see a coach do this all the time, they'll always go, so what problem are we solving here? You know, it sounds really smart, but in reality, they just basically look at this diagram and going, well, actually, how can we do the problem solution if we don't know what problem we're solving? I say go back further than that. Where on the customer roadmap is that problem? And to get a customer roadmap, we need to know who the customer is. And is our customer even aligned on our purpose? So you kind of like, you know, why are we solving this problem? For who? Whereabouts in the life cycle is it? What problem is it solving? How are we going to do it? And you could, if you get those words in your mind and off the back of your head, you can create a project plan, a business startup, a product delivery, a steering group meeting, much, much simpler. And we're basically going to go through this over the next 2 weeks. So like, I don't make it obvious, but I'm basically going through. We've been through why today, or yesterday, sorry, and today. Tomorrow we're doing design thinking, which is pretty much who, where, and what. And an agile delivery is going to be how, in what way, and when, right? So that's basically how I look at things. One of the key arguments to agile delivery, not having like integration with the customer, is because actually it's done by design teams outside. And is it a bad thing? Probably not. It's not a bad thing. But a lot of agile people will tell you it is. I won't. It's actually really interesting. I got lots of interesting stuff in here. So basically, brain plasticity. We used to think that brains were static and that they don't grow. It's just absolute nonsense. Our brains can grow at any age. They move, they adapt. New neurons are continuously updating themselves. So when people tell you they can't change, they don't want to change. There's a difference. We have a thing called epigenetics. So I always love people saying, "Oh, I wasn't born smart." Well, you can make yourself smart by reading 100 books. And I haven't met anyone who's read like 1 book a week or 2 books a week. So if you have a problem in something, go buy the 100 books of that problem and read them and tell me, are you not the expert in that field by that time? You will reprogram your brain and you can reprogram your genetics or your epigenetics.
You don't want to be the smartest in the room these days, Michael.
No, everyone hates you. It's a very good point. Kelsey, what are you going to say?
No, it wasn't. That's the second time you've said that, but something was going through my mind. The Apple guy, what is he? He reads a book a week and takes 2 weeks off a year to just read books.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big believer in that. So when I wanted to run a butchery, I got hold of 100 books. Most of them were based in 1910s, 1920s. And I read every book I could find on butchering, food manufacturing, sausage making, charcuterie, everything, right? And the time I read all those books, I was probably one of the most knowledgeable people in Wellington on charcuterie, which is crazy if you think about it, right? Just some random white collar guy suddenly like making better bacon than the guys for 20 years. But because they are iteratively getting better if they want to, but most are not. So it was very interesting. So I turned my epigenetics on and I could almost sense good and bad meat by 1 year. It was crazy. I loved it.
Well, you're learning through others' experiences rather than having to experience it yourself, so you can speed the process up. Vicarious learning.
I jumped so much. And even today, I can still make some really good dry cured meat. So, it's the Matrix, right? We can reprogram ourselves. One of the biggest studies on this is in the hippocampus area. Now, for those who are not from London, to basically become a cabbie in London, before Uber, you just had to memorize the knowledge. And what they did the study on all these taxi drivers before and after, and they physically saw their brain had increased in the hippocampus area. So these are relatively mostly old men whose brains doubled in size in certain areas to memorize the 300 roots. So when anyone tells you they can't learn something, it's well, if these guys who are drinking, literally have a book in front of them trying to memorize stuff and drinking pints can double their brain size, I'm pretty sure everybody else can. So how do we get brain plasticity at work? Well, we've got to have an environment where you're safe to fail, right? If you're not safe to fail, you can't actually trial and error things, which is why we talk about psychological safety quite often. The definition I use is a sense of being able to show and be yourself without fear of negative consequences to your self-image, status, or position in life. It's as close as I can get to a good succinct statement, right? It booms creativity. So if you give people safety to trial things, they become more creative. It leads to more time out, which is fascinating, right? So at Surge, we're outcome driven, right? So you don't pay us per hour. I don't allow it. I find it weird. pay me for the outcome. Kelsey, what do you want? You want me to evaluate HR for you? Awesome. Excellent. That's, $10 done. Right. And I'll spend as much time out thinking and walking. If you're ever in the same area as me, come grab me. I go on walking meetings. Like I just go off on 2-kilometer walk and we talk about all random stuff. And it's the most creative time I ever have. Leave the office. The sensors in your employee hat tell me you are not having to work-related things. This is the problem with psychological safety, right? If we don't actually really trust our staff, we're not going to get the results. You can't trust people in name only, which is why we have the thing called agile in name only, right? It releases a fear receptor, which actually decreases productivity massively. So we're getting into neuroscience here. Sorry, guys, but neuroscience is really interesting for culture. So when you think about it, you've got behavioral science, which is more of a sociology. It's not real science, right? But then the neuroscience behind it and backing up the social sciences for the last probably 10 years. It's fascinating. So your fear receptors go up, which basically decreases creativity, and it basically completely ruins productivity gains. So how do you keep going? You become task related. So this is why Scrum has a big theme down to a feature, down to an epic, down to a user story, down to a task, and sometimes down to a test case, behavioral driven development, ATDD, and so on. If it's one step in front of the other, you basically have less fear of failure, which leads to culture growth. So I hate, sorry for people in culture, I hate simplifying the entirety of culture growth in one slide. But if you reduce the fear, you increase the creativity, and you empower people, culture naturally grows in the right direction. So this is a test of selective attention. I love you guys do this. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you get?
15.
15 for Greg?
It started before I started counting, so I missed it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Anybody else? Anna, were you counting?
I've seen it
You've
before,
seen it.
so I don't want to ruin it.
I knew you did. I saw your face the moment we did that. All right. Zabir, yourself? All right, so we'll continue.
I started watching it late as well.
Okay, all right, so 15 is the answer, right? Well done, guys. 15 passes.
Is that what you said, Greg?
But
well done. You've seen it before.
But who saw the gorilla?
I didn't see any gorilla.
I did because of.
There you go. Wow. No, I didn't.
I saw the gorilla because I wasn't counting.
Nice.
I used to think of myself as very observant, and then I completely missed that when I first watched that. And now obviously you can't not see it because you. Oh, how do I get through this? You can't not see it after you know it's there. So
I didn't see it the first time either.
No, it's crazy, right? Like, I think you become so focused on one task that you forget the wider point. So why did I give you that? Well, cognitive biases are massive, and we all have them. So first, to acknowledge, we've all got them. Okay, so there's no way of avoiding them. Again, that video is really good. We need to basically have hypothesis testing to get around our biases. So I'll quickly rate through this. Long story short, as long as you're constantly testing yourself, you can go through it. This one here is also in your course notes. It's a really good one. If you haven't watched it before, I recommend it. It's about our bias of group, like social loafing for you, Kelsey, as well as implicit bias, where we basically just do what other people say. So business digital transformation, amber command control, orange outcome focus, green people centric. That's the plan. That's the next 2 weeks, right? Kinefin, amber, orange, green, teal. I'm oversimplifying for a reason, but it kind of makes it easier for us to understand. If we're in a complicated industry, there is nothing wrong with orange. If you're in an obvious industry, there's nothing wrong with amber. There's no point making accountants green. Their outcome focus is fine. And this is where I'll say, and I always joke that I do myself out of consulting role, because when you think about it, I tell people not to go agile. No, you don't need more agility. And what you'll find, especially adult coaches, they'll tell you, yes, you've always need more agility. We all need it. And I'm here to say you don't. Some areas do not need it. And I always ask you to validate if it makes sense. Are you creating more customer value? Yes or no? So you may go on an agile journey and you may stop at orange because that's as much as you need. Teal is something that we don't go into detail on this course. Why? I don't think it's obtainable or needed in today's society, right? It's self-management, it's evolutionary purpose, it's evolving roles. That's going to do your nutting, Kelsey, wouldn't it? The roles are always changing, natural hierarchies. It sounds cool. It's a living organism. It's distributed leadership. It's teal, right? There's a couple of companies out there like that. But to be honest, it's not something that in New Zealand and Australia that we're ever going to get to the next 10 years, right? Look out for
I think it'll take longer than 10 years to get there.
I guess I'm hoping in 10 years we'll start having some teal companies. I would say we haven't even got one teal company. There may be the odd startup, it doesn't really count. Sharesies was doing really well. They were very green/teal, and now they're going orange. Why? Because as they scale up their employees, they get into a natural hierarchy.
I think some of the Bitcoin things may get there.
It may do, but once they go past a certain amount, the shareholders start pulling rank. So a way around that, what I'm doing in Surge is I've distributed shareholder value and I've given my company away.
Right.
So would teal organisations still have policies and formal?
Yeah, but they're always evolving. So like you heard of the term, what's the term? Living documents?
Yeah.
You just have living policies that just naturally change. So you may have like someone goes, oh, actually this I broke this policy, so it's probably better to change it, and they'll just change it. I look forward to one day spending 6 months in a teal organization to really understand all the nuances. At the moment, all we see is reports, and I know IC Agile want me to promote teal as the end goal, but I promote green as the end goal.
Yeah.
Because let's take one step forward, and bear in mind that's 2 for most companies. Most will be in amber. If we can get you to orange in the next 18 months, that's a win. To bring you to green later on is another 3 years, and then teal. I just don't believe it's possible. Not for organizations, and it shouldn't be. I mean, Frederick Locks originally stated that you didn't need to actually go to teal. He said it stop where it makes sense for you.
Why do you say 3 years?
For people centric, because it's culture change. So personally, to me, there's only one way of doing culture change, and that's a slow grind. Because if you sack everybody and try to rehire, it can do negative consequences on the culture. This is my personal view, guys. There's no, it's not a course material for it. But for me personally, 3 years is about the average culture change to really embed new cultures. Why?
Even after McKinsey,
You're on mute, buddy.
even after McKinsey's been around to companies, right? They still take a number of years to actually evolve the culture.
Oh, totally. I mean, I'm not saying that 3 is like this magic number where if you haven't done it in 3 years, you've done a bad job. It's just like, from what I've read, 3 years seems to be the time when you change the culture over 18 months, and then it's embedded, and then it becomes norm. Because if you go with Siobhan's, forgot her last name, Siobhan's explanation of culture, which is basically how things are done here, you want it to be a natural embedded. So I can embed processes. I can make an organization agile probably in about, depending on the size, 3-4 months, Greg, reality. You can tell everyone what to do. But I make the joke. Here's a joke for you. It takes 3 minutes to learn Scrum. Takes 3 weeks to learn a bit of Scrum Master. It takes 3 months to embed Scrum. It takes 3 years to do Scrum perfectly. Because there is no perfect Scrum. So yeah, it's like that. It's that joke that you can learn like the process and tools very quickly, but it takes a very long time to change the mindset. So yeah, maybe I'm.
But that's all in the doing agile, right? It's a lot of teaching there.
Correct. Doing versus, and we go through that on Friday, I think, as well. Doing versus being agile. But yeah, it's, I guess to answer your question, Anna, in a very, very, very long-winded way, I think 3 years is like the average thing I've read. I will say, I would be brutally honest, I'm never somewhere 3 years. So I hear about the culture change embedded within 18 months. And then I hear about it becoming natural, which is what I class as culture change, like 3 to 5 years later. I know ANZ has taken Australia, that is. Is it 8 years? It's 8 years now. We're 2020. 7 years. So it took ANZ in Australia 7 years to really get their culture to a point where they say, we're done. Well, you're never done. But
You'll never be done.
No, you're never done.
It is a hard, long graft, and I agree it can take years, and it depends on how big the organisation has to lead, how far it has to go.
Totally. And it also depends on, like, I'll do it another time. It also depends on, like, what was your goal for culture? So people will say culture, and I'm doing it as well in the course. It's because the conversation is much, much bigger. It's like saying, what do you want people to be saying about your organization? So therefore, what do you want people in your organization to be personifying? And that's the goal of culture, right? And that's different for every organization. So you want them to have the hat of customer servant, or are they the hat of project manager? No, you want to really get to know that. For that, you require strategy. And I mean strategy is in like the vision side of strategy as well. So many times my industry is terrible for this. They'll start on an agile journey and they'll basically just say, oh, culture, growth mindset. And there's no goal. Like, where are you going? Just going blindly over here to the tools and process because that's what you've been told is great. I find that we need to objectively say, where are we right now? Where do we want to be? What do we need to do to get there? Yes, culture will change, but it needs to be deliberate culture based on emergent practices, which is what that diagram is of strategy. It's all about, for me. It's about you're deliberately changing things, strategy, so Porter, but you have a deliberate strategy that can change from emergent practices that come up. So you're mixing the best of both worlds, in my personal view.
Michael, the only one that I've heard was Ricardo Semler in Brazil, who changed it remarkably quickly, but it was more about
petrol company, right? Oil company.
Yeah, and it was also his motivation was he didn't want to be in the company; he wanted to be able to do his own thing.
Really? Did I know that? Do you want to know a little trick about what they did though? So you hear all these good stories, right? We always hear the good stories, right? We don't hear how things have actually done. So, for instance, he would buy a company up, and like any terrible company would go in here, find all the stuff that went really well, take it to the other company and destroy all the things that went really badly. And what he did was he evaluated things like culture, and whoever didn't fit was Gonski. It's a really hard thing. Like I'm of the belief that you shouldn't get rid of anybody who's actually trying. Like I really believe that deep down. But I've been in enough meetings now where people, the problem is X, and the biggest concern they've got is the payroll. And I feel for those owners as well. So it's catch-22. I always believe that big organizations, the ones that we work for, should be able to redivert resources, people, to the next available thing that creates value. And if you can't do that, then you've got leaders who are not probably agile enough.
I think the key to what you said there was whether or not they're trying.
And that's the. There's a diagram I've got somewhere. It's not in the course, but it's basically the difference between a coach and a therapist. So I have been told I'm quite blunt and I don't give people enough time. It's because, look, if you show me you want to do something, we will make it happen. I guarantee you. You want to make $1 million? I will make you $1 million. You want to find the love of your life? We will find you the love of your life, right? But if you don't commit to me, I'm going to basically drop you like a hat, right? Whereas therapists, they unwind the reasons why you may not commit. And I've had a few business psychologist friends. One of my professors is a business psychologist as well. And she finds me like humorous, who say, because she said, if you work long enough, every employee can be saved. I said, yeah, but how long would that take and how much money and resources does that take? So I agree, everyone can be saved. I don't have the necessary skill sets to unwind the complexity of the brain to bring that person on a journey. And we go through tribal leadership sides of where I say to drop someone and not. So again, Michael's got a concrete sequential way of doing that. So if you hear certain words and you evaluate them and you think they're at stage 1, KPI them out. So what do you guys call it?
Performance managed.
Performance managed out.
Depends on what it is.
Yeah.
6 sessions or less. That's the magic number.
Yeah.
With plenty of time in between to see the improvements.
To give you an example. So tribal leadership in advance, like stage 1 is life sucks. Stage 2 is my life sucks. Stage 3 is I'm great. Stage 4 is we're great. Stage 5 is life's great. Right? And what we do is in a few days' time, we'll go through how to divide those people and talk about how we've met that's like that. What I tend to find personally is if you find my life sucks people, it's debatable. But if you find that life sucks people who just basically have given up and they're just coming in to get a paycheck to go home to eat, it's probably not worth the time. But it's a personal decision. But if you come into it and you're here to do a job and you love your customer and you're an I person and I am great, I know I can transfer you into a team player. I just unwind some of your training of why you've been rewarded for personal achievement. Cool. So we are way over time. But I'm going to personally say it's because Anna was late.
So at least I made it. I didn't think I could make it at all tonight, but I did. So there you go.
That's fine.
We waited for you. We didn't start until you got there.
No, we didn't start. Yeah. No, and you are my beta testers, guys. So a lot of these timings I've done was based on 2 people who knew the content and we barely chatted. So, and if you ask the live guys, the couple of live courses we've done, we're going to like 10 at night. But it's because there's so much cool stuff to go through. I just don't want to like not do it. And IC Agile want this to be 3 courses apparently. And I'm like, no, it's 1 course. Value. So we'll stop recording.